Welcome back to, or welcome to, Kindred Groups, an experiment in faith from St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. We are continuing our study on the letter of James, and so I invite you into chapter 1. We'll consider what are those trials and tribulations that we experience, those things that all of us go through. But James has an interesting perspective on what we should do with them. We're also reminded that we need to not only hear these things, be sort of affected by them, but actually put them into practice to do the things that God has told us to do. And so let's join back into the conversation with Doug Burry, who has written this series. So you said with chapter 1, the sort of idea of trials and temptations as something to be celebrated.
Yes, and that is the hard part that I have found in my life, that I've come into trials and temptations in my life. And there's been good times and there's been bad times. And I have found that I have really struggled with the bad times. I do not see it as a blessings that James brings out. I see it as something really bad that has affected my family. And I don't really appreciate that because it is very difficult to figure out how you're going to get through these hard times. But you just have to work your way through it and go to prayer and ask God to show you the direction that you need to do.
I've found that it's a little bit easier to see those things sort of in hindsight. You look back and you say, actually, that was really a blessing. And when you're in the midst of it, it's really hard to see that. But maybe afterwards you can see. And then maybe for your next trial, you get to see that blessing side.
Yeah, James points out that these trials and temptations, that they are sent sometimes from God to test you. And I found that interesting because when you're in the midst of this temptation and trials, it's hard to see the light out of it. And I found that James says that we are to receive it and that we are to learn something from it. And at the end of the road, there will be a blessing somewhere, somehow. Even though you don't see it, it's there. And I have found that out as I went through life, that the difficulties have made me stronger in my life. And that's one of the things I have learned from it.
Yeah. Sometimes theologically, this idea of sort of God testing us can be a troubling one, or some people sort of bump against that. I like maybe a framing of sort of it's an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to do something. It's, yes, a test, but not like God saying, oh, I hope they fail. It's more of a, okay, let's see what you've learned.
Yes, it is. And you come away with an experience. And one of the things that I have learned is, how did I get into this mess? It's something that I've done in my lifetime that has gotten me into that. And now I've got to figure out a way to get out of it. And I don't want to get back into that mess again. So I've learned something from it. And it is a test. And I have always come out stronger, and I've always learned something from it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and also, so sometimes, yes, yeah, we can look at it and say, oh, look, it's the consequences of my own actions. But sometimes it's also, it's just, stuff happens to us and we don't have control over it, which can also be helpful as we're thinking about other people, and seeing sort of not always the consequences of their actions, but just, the consequences of other people's actions or things out of their control.
Yes, there are things that are out of people's control. And I'll give you one example that I got into several years ago that involved me, was that I got involved in a car wreck.
Yeah.
And the people had insurance, but what I found out is when I went to buy a new car, I had to come up with $15,000 more out of my pocket
Oh,
because the insurance company only paid me for what my vehicle was worth at that time. But over the 5 years that I had that vehicle, the cost of a new vehicle has went up $15,000. So I had to figure out, okay, I got to go to a bank somewhere and get the additional cash. And now I've come up with how am I going to manage these monthly payments every month?
oh my gosh.
So, there are consequences that we are involved in that are not our own fault. And you see this as a test. Something you don't want to happen to you and your family, but it does happen through no fault of your own. So these are things that James talks about, how to handle these situations.
And one of the reasons that I love James is it's so practical in that way. This is not sort of aloof theological treatise on the divinity of Christ. This is, you deal with problems, see it as a joy, count it as joy.
James does say that it should be revealed as a joy, even though I find that rather difficult in my own life. It's not something I look forward to, but James does say that we need to look at trials and temptations as a joy, and we should welcome them. And that's one of the difficulties that we'll talk about in James, that how difficult it is to come to the answers that get us out of these things. And sometimes James implies that it's not an overnight thing, that it may take a few days, a few weeks, or a few months to get out of this situation. Somehow or another, if you welcome it, you will get out of it and you will learn something from it that Jesus wants to impart to you. And it is rather difficult at times to accept that theory that James shows to us. But it is difficult, but it can be done.